In the 21st century, a weapon will be invented like no other. This weapon will be powerful, versatile, and indestructible. It can't be reasoned with. It can't be bargained with. It will feel no pity, no remorse, no pain, no fear. It will have only one purpose: to return to the present and prevent the future. This weapon will be called the Terminator.
You're dead, honey.
Hello and welcome to the Damian and Devlin show. This is our review of The Terminator, 1984 film directed by James Cameron and starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and Michael Biehn. This movie, of course, was a big smash hit. It actually wasn't expected to be a big hit. Even Orion Pictures, who released it, didn't expect it to do very well, but it actually debuted at #1 and had no problems doing it. It had a minimal budget of about $6 million, and it actually became the movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger became a big star with. Although he already had Conan the Barbarian, that wasn't guaranteed to make him a star, but it was Terminator that did. Ironically, he didn't necessarily love the idea of this movie because he thought it's a robot, but he also thought the robot would be a good contrast to the Barbarian role. It worked out because it basically turned him into a household name as a movie star, not as a muscle builder. And it also started James Cameron's career as well, who went on to become a huge director. And Damian picked this one, but I was quite happy he did because it was a movie I love too. And we had never watched it together, and so we put it on and got to enjoy it together. So why did you pick it? Just wanted to see it, or?
Well, I'm a big James Cameron fan. Obviously, my favorite movie, Aliens, was directed by James Cameron. There are a lot of the same actors that are in The Terminator that are in Aliens, as well as it's just honestly a very enjoyable, kind of short movie. It gets to the point, as you said at one point during the movie, but it's enjoyable through and through all the way to the end. The characters are interesting, it's got excellent performances, and it's just very fun.
Yeah, this movie is really cool, and I read a little bit about the history, and it seemed like they had a lot of trouble getting this off the ground, but just finding the right actors. Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson both turned down the role. At one point, Arnold Schwarzenegger was supposed to play the Michael Biehn part, but James Cameron didn't even want him in this movie. But after they got to know each other, they kind of said, you know what, you'd be better as the Terminator. So there was a lot of changes in that, but when it all came together, it really came together. This is a great science fiction film, it's a great action film, and it does a lot of good character building as well. So it's a really good movie, and there's a reason it kicked off a major franchise. I've never hated any of the movies in the franchise, but I also believe this didn't really need a sequel. I like it as a standalone film. This isn't even the most loved in the series, but for me, it's the most loved. I personally, we'll talk about those other ones another time, but there's another one that gets a lot of love. I still think this is a better movie than the second one. So, your positives.
I love all of the actors in this movie, from Michael Biehn as Kyle Reese to Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, and of course, how could you forget that bodacious babe, Lance Henriksen, as the nameless cop in the police station. What a phenomenal role by him. But no, in all seriousness, Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor, she's phenomenal in it, and plus she's super, super hot. So there's always that. Plus with this role, she grew into being one of the most iconic female protagonists of all time as Sarah Connor, because in the first film, she starts off with what we just watched, was kind of like afraid, not knowing, weak kind of character. And then in the second film, she kind of grows into her own as this badass babe that kicks ass and just takes names all over the place. So Linda Hamilton is just phenomenal. She's iconic, and she's really, really hot too. On top of that, I do like the fact that James Cameron directed it. As I've mentioned many times, James Cameron is one of my favorite directors. He's not my favorite director, but he's one of my favorite directors. He's directed Aliens, which is my all-time favorite movie, as I mentioned. There's Titanic in there as well. Avatar, I truly enjoyed as well. So he makes great movies, including The Terminator. I like the script. I think it's an excellent premise where the machines have taken over and they've pretty much tried to annihilate the human race, which in this day and age is not too hard to think of. Now, I can only imagine what you guys in the 80s must have thought, like, oh, that'll never happen. But in this day and age, it's getting closer and closer to reality. And people always joke about how Skynet's taking over. It's because we're getting close to that. And it's a scary kind of premise, especially now. So I like that plot.
That's a great point.
Yeah, the performances as well. Like Michael Biehn as Kyle Reese. Very, very believable as like this PTSD-stricken survivor in the post-apocalyptic wasteland. Linda Hamilton as this scared teenager that doesn't really know what's going on but is fighting to survive. And then I think, even though you pointed out it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's best role because there's not a lot of acting.
I like Arnie. He's a great person, but I always call this his best role because we don't see him act that much.
But you
it's
know
all
what?
physical.
I think that's what makes it so good because he's so emotionless and he plays that killer robot so very well. And just, it's fun. The set pieces sometimes are just breathtaking. There's a certain chase scene near the end where Kyle and Sarah are trying to get away from the Terminator, and the Terminator's on a motorcycle. Kyle's throwing pipe bombs out the window of a Jeep, and it's just really, really cool. And just the attention to detail and the tiniest little things throughout the movie. You know me so far. I love attention to detail. I love consistency, and this movie's got plenty of consistency. You'll notice that Kyle Reese has kind of got a scar on his chin that is always there. It's never forgotten with the makeup department. He gets shot at one point.
Doesn't he have that scar in real life?
No.
Okay.
No, he
I
doesn't.
thought he might have had it in Aliens too.
No.
I'm looking.
Trust me.
Oh yeah, you've seen it 400 times.
That's right. I would know.
It's so good. I actually thought it was a real scar.
But I can't rave about this movie enough. And going off of kind of what you said, a lot of people are like, oh, you know what? Terminator 2 is the best. It's so groundbreaking. It's better than the first by leagues. I disagree.
Yeah, you're talking to two people who aren't the biggest.
Yeah, I disagree.
I enjoy the movie.
So do I.
I just think it has some
Except for
problems.
Edward Furlong. Don't get me started on Edward Furlong. But
Or any telling jokes.
yeah, but I think it works better when the Terminator is the bad guy because it works so well because it's humans versus machines, whereas the second movie basically makes the machines just a tool of the humans. It takes away that fight or flight instinct where there's no real sense of danger because you've got this kid being protected by a killer robot. There's no sense of danger there, whereas this is two humans doing everything that they can to survive, and I think it really just captures you like on the edge of your seat the entire way through. So I think Arnie as the bad Terminator, the antagonist of the film, works so much better as a protagonist.
Yeah, we'll have to put that on our list because I think we could have a lot of fun with that.
Oh,
since you and
absolutely.
I have issues with it where a lot of people just give it a pass.
Edward Furlong copied my hairstyle, by the way. Just saying. I championed that in the early 90s.
Were you alive when that movie
It came out in 92. I was 1 year old.
And you had this look?
I did.
That
Came out with a nice full head of hair.
If you can produce a picture of that, I would like to see that, you know.
But anyways, yeah, no, I love this movie.
Yeah, I will go off something you said that I never really thought about. I've always liked this movie. It was a scary movie to watch when it first came out because of the fact, like, ooh, machines are going to take over. But it actually still stays even more timely now because of what we're seeing can be done in the future. So, yeah, that actually keeps its reality in a lot of ways. Yes, this movie's set in the 80s. But, you know, if they made this movie today, it could still work because we're even closer to it. So, yeah, it keeps that intensity and stuff. James Cameron does a great job in this. It's my favorite thing, my favorite positive is this. Everything in this movie is simple. And I like James Cameron. He's not one of my all-time favorite directors, but I like a lot of his movies, as we'll be talking about soon. But I love that this was one of the movies that he kept simple. This was early in his career. You know, you'd just come off a movie called Piranha 2: The Spawning, which didn't really do much for his career. And he got this one. And he actually wanted to do this one immediately. And his manager said, oh, forget doing that. And he fired his manager because he knows what he's doing. And I love that he takes care when he did movies like Titanic and Avatar. But he seems to get stuck on them, and he takes years to make them, and he's almost like overthinks everything. Like he'll do an extended mix of the movie, he'll do documentaries about Titanic, and I respect that for him. But I kind of wish he could go back every once in a while and do a small film, and then do a big one. And then, you know, forget the 4 Avatar sequels and do a small film again. Everything in this movie is simple. The action is simple, and it works. The storyline is complex, but they somehow keep it simple, even though your head's trying to wrap around it, but it's still simple.
It's the sequels that really go bug nuts crazy
When
with the storyline. The original movie, like you said, makes it really easy to follow and understand.
Yeah, and just everything's simple in this. The music, the score, I'm not saying the music's anything spectacular, but it's simple. He just keeps everything simple, and it works because he's got a strong script and he's got good actors doing it. And I don't want to put down Arnie, but I do think this is one of his best performances because they keep him limited. He talks more in the future ones, and that's not horrible, but I like when he's just saying a couple of little catchphrases here and there and stuff like that. Michael Biehn, I think, is one of the most underrated actors, and I wish I got to see him in more. He should be in more because he's really good, and you know, he just, even watching his intensity in this movie, it's like, why did this guy not be in more things? He just was really good. And Linda Hamilton was awesome. I like seeing her grow in this film. At the beginning, she's just like, I don't know what to do. There's little like biting fingernails and stuff. And you see her grow as a character. As much as I'm not the biggest fan of the second one, she is one of the best parts of the second movie.
Yep.
She is strong in it. And Linda Hamilton, you know, she did do some other stuff. But again, she could have done a lot more, and it would have been nice to see. So to see them all together, you know, to be honest with you, going back, I'd be so surprised that you tell me that Arnie was the biggest star. Like, if I saw this movie, I would think these other two are going to be good, and Arnie's going to do a couple of niche films.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? So I grew up after Arnold Schwarzenegger was a household name in the 80s, so knowing that this was one of his first things is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah. But other things I loved about this movie is that it's just, as I said, the simplicity is my thing. I think it's one of the best scripts out there, even though there is some problems, but I'll get to that in negative. I think it's just a wonderful idea. I remember, even rewatching this, I remember moments, like, I don't want to give too many spoilers, because as I said, we like to play to people sometimes that haven't seen this, although a lot of people watch it have seen it. But it's just like, they just play really smart. And I remember the moments that I'm like, what? That's what? They're back in time? Because there's time travel elements. And that's what they're back in time for? And I remember, as a younger guy watching this, being blown away by it. And I even remembered like my emotions when I first saw it. And I think that's a good sign of a movie. Because, you know, if you're watching a movie and it's like, I saw this 3 times, I can't remember what's coming up. But this, I actually could remember. Oh, I remember being like, I think I even said I was really freaked out by that scene or this and that. So, you know, it doesn't seem like a lot of positives, but it's good. He gets the job done. For a guy who does really long movies now, the fact that this reels in at about 140 minutes is pretty impressive.
I wouldn't say 140 minutes, like an hour and 40 minutes, because 140 minutes is a long
Oh,
time.
sorry, yes, I meant an hour and 40 minutes.
Hour 40 minutes, it's not a marathon.
What would I do without you? If he made it today, this movie would be bucking 3 hours.
You'd have Terminator, the Special Edition, you'd have Terminator Deluxe Special Edition.
So I like that he kept it tight, because it works really good. So your negatives.
Well, you actually made a comment just now.
I know.
I made a face. You probably didn't see it.
I did not, but I'll see it when I rewatch it.
But, you mentioned, well, the soundtrack's not spectacular. And I think that's a perfect quote, because the soundtrack's not spectacular.
You weren't trying to do me there, were you?
I was kind of.
Oh my god, don't try to do impressions of
Oh my god, don't try to do impressions of me.
me. Go on.
Go on.
Yes, don't be doing this.
No?
Okay, he's gonna talk now about all the 80s shit that he doesn't like. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Good
I
Lord.
can't stand this over-synthesized garbage. Like,
Trust
it's
me, when you were in the 80s, you didn't notice it.
Yeah, just like I
It
didn't
does
notice.
sound jarring
What's
it
that,
now.
That fitness model that was in this movie.
Best Mada. Can we
Best
give a
Mada.
thumbs up to Best
Look
Mada?
at the size of her hair was almost as big as Arnold Schwarzenegger's
Oh my
entire body. Like, the whole soundtrack is just so bad and obnoxious. The only part of the soundtrack that I enjoy is the opening credits and the ending credits because they're the same song. But when the Terminator words are going apart and you get to the logo, it's like or something like that, and it's awesome. That's the only good song about this soundtrack. Everything else is just over-synthesized 80s garbage. As well as on top of that, now 80s people, again, get ready to throw your hate at me because I can't stand your fashion. Your 80s fashion just boggles my mind every time. The hair, the style of clothes. You know, the only person that looked good with their outfit in this movie was Arnold Schwarzenegger because he was wearing a leather jacket and skinny pants. And that is a timeless look that never goes away. So I know that's not nothing to do with the movie, but good God, it just, I can't believe that was a thing at one point. I know you're festering, but I'm not done yet. I'm not done
I need
yet.
to wear clothes so none of my skin shows
Look,
at all.
I'll show some skin. You gotta get
Oh my
scandalous.
da.
Right? All right. So I'm not afraid to show some skin and get out of here. As well as, I'm just going to go out and say this. I know they tried their best on a limited budget, but some of the special effects were just so bad. There's a mannequin head of Arnold Schwarzenegger used. I wouldn't say it's a mannequin, probably like a robot
Yeah.
of its own, like a motorized kind of bust of
It
him.
sounds like it would be awesome. But
It's not. Trust me, it's not. You could tell, like, he's staring at a mirror doing something to himself. I'm not going to say what. And then it shows him again in another scene, but you could tell it's totally not him. It's like this weird contrasting thing. And it literally looks like the fakest garbage you've ever seen. As well as near the end of the movie, you kind of see the Terminator for what he really is. And it's the stop motion, horrible paper mache looking thing. And I kind of just wanted them. I wanted them to.
It
go,
wasn't great. But
and he'd blow off
No.
in the wind. It looked so bad.
I gotta show you some paper mache movies because that did not
it
look
looked
paper
so
mache.
bad. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have too many complaints. I think it was pretty well-rounded film.
Okay, well, I'm not going to put down the soundtrack because
Of course
yes, there would. Can I speak? You're gonna show your skin. Anyhow, I enjoy a movie of its time, and yes, sometimes that music wouldn't have been garish in the 80s. We would have been like, wow, I'm gonna run out and get the soundtrack. I'm going down to Cheapy's, man, and get the soundtrack. Because, that's just what happened. Now, if you wanted to really put down stuff, there's lots of times they put some really bad pop music in it to fill up the soundtrack. Like if they're at a techno bar and it sounds like some Laura Branigan song, like, terminate my love. Because at the time, every movie needed a soundtrack. And if you could get a couple of pop songs on the radio, but they never had that. So, but I'm not going to put it down because it was of its era, but I will agree with you that the special effects don't hold up. But there are moments that some of them don't hold up, but I like them, like the skulls. The skulls look really fake. I never look at them
They're
saying,
so small.
I know,
They're
but
so tiny.
I know they're like monkeys or something. But it's like I like them. I like that they don't look realistic. But I liked even the lightning, even though that was really bad. And I do agree that eye sequence is horrible. But I get it. It's from its time, but it just seemed like I seem to remember movies of that time that had better budgets. Now they have a scene where he has his arm open, And you can see the things. That's a beautiful scene.
Yeah, no. Stan Winston, he's the one that did all these special effects.
Stan Winston is a
genius.
Yes.
He definitely nailed it with certain things. It's just, it makes you wonder why they decided to use that. When later on in the film, to show the exact same kind of like cosmetic effect to Arnie's face, it's done on Arnie and it looks awesome. So you have to wonder why they bothered to use this miniature animatronic thing.
Yeah, I think they paid a lot of money for it and they said, we better use it. Or we're just writing it off and it costs more. But anyhow, it doesn't really detract from the movie, but you do take a second and go, what? Anyhow, I got to go to the big thing I have for this movie. Because I don't have a lot of complaints. As I said, I love the script. I like the directing. I like the thing. But as much as I love the script, this is one of the biggest plot holes in the whole history of cinema. You might disagree with me, and I got to do it in a way where I don't give it up.
I'm intrigued.
Okay. So there's time travel. Whenever you deal with time travel, you're already playing with some trouble. I don't want to give away the movie, but the Michael Biehn character comes back for a certain purpose. He has couple of purposes. One is to protect her from Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't think that's a spoiler. But the other thing he's does... He's
coming back to show some skin, if you know what he means.
Yes, and he does. And thank God, because he might like Linda Hamilton, but Michael Biehn was all that and a bag of chips. That's how we talked. Not a lot,
well,
though.
Thank goodness the 80s are over.
No, we didn't say that in the 80s. That was a couple of years ago. Anyhow, he has another mission. And it's not really a mission because they make it in the movie like it just happens. But you get the feeling that's what's supposed to happen. Now, the person who helped him come to this mission wouldn't have possibly existed if he wouldn't be able to send that guy to come, because technically he didn't exist in the future if a certain thing didn't happen in the past. So they actually have somebody from the future affecting the past, but technically there could not have been a person in that future. Are you getting what I'm saying here?
So, yes, I am, and thankfully I've seen the movie.
Yeah, and
I know what you're talking about.
If anybody who's seen it knows what I'm talking about.
But those of you that haven't are probably, what are you talking about? Right,
but think about it. There would have been none of him because of the results that eventually happen in the 1980s. So how is that character even exist? Because of the fact that what happens has to have the person from the future do that.
Don't think too hard on it. That's all I have to say.
I know, I'm not... But it's a huge plot hole, is it not?
I agree, and that's why you said playing with time travel opens up a whole can of worms.
Right.
Because so many things, so many what-ifs can come from it.
And even if that person in the future was still born, not stillborn, but still, if they were born already, think about it. That person would have totally been a different person. And if you change their parentage or their thing, they could have been a totally, like, useless person in the future.
No, I agree.
So it's a big plot hole, and I don't sit... I love this movie. You'll see when I give it my rating. This is one of my favorite movies. I think it's one of my favorite James Cameron movies. I almost said it was my favorite, but I do have one that's higher. But... yeah, I don't let it ruin the movie for me, but if we have to be picky as reviewers, it is a big one to look into.
No, absolutely. Going off of plot holes, there's a moment in the movie where Kyle Reese is shown to not have any understanding of money. And so he and Linda Hamilton will get to a motel, and then suddenly he's like, I'm going out for supplies. So like he has no concept of money, but he's the one that's going to go to Walmart apparently and buy all these survival supplies. That's a plot hole that I pointed out. It makes no sense to me.
He finds the smallest little things. I come up with these big world-altering things that's like, why is he using the money? No, I'm kidding. That was not an impression of you. That was just me being goofy.
He was impersonating himself.
Oh my God, did he really say that? Okay, what's your number? Give us your number here.
4.
4?
It's a 4 for me. This movie is the best Terminator movie in my opinion, and it is an amazing movie just by itself.
I agree. This is my favorite Terminator movie, and as I said, I don't hate any of the Terminator movies. I think they all have varying degrees of good stuff in them. But I'm going to give it a 4.5 because I think it is really well done, and I think, except for the special effects and stuff and the music, it doesn't hold up, but I think storyline totally holds up. And the fact that they're going back to the 80s, it technically does kind of hold up because that's what we were doing in the 80s.
All right, fair enough. I'll give that to you.
Anyhow, that's our review of Terminator, and definitely if you saw it way in the past, check it out again because they kind of soiled it. Even though I don't mind the Terminator movies, they've kind of soiled it. Go back and watch the original and have a lot of fun with it because it is a really great film. That is our review, and thank you for watching.
Comment. Let us know what you want to see next. Let us know. Did you like The Terminator? Did you like any of the sequels better? Let us know if you're on our side. For once, we're actually 100% agreeing with each other.
Once we've agreed on a
Doesn't
couple.
happen often. Doesn't happen too often. As always, guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to be notified of when we are going to be showing you our next review, make sure you subscribe so you're in the know, and we will see you next time.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator. Your future is in its hands.